Excellent. So we are going to go ahead and get started today. So welcome everyone to the Leap Tools for Weeding webinar. Um, my name is Mieko. I'm the Member Services Librarian for Public Services here at CCS, and I am co-presenting today with my colleague Rachel.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Fisher. I'm the Member Services Librarian for Technical Services.
So we are here today to talk about some new tools that were added to Leap with the Polaris 7.5 release. So combined, these tools make up what's called the Leap weeding workflow. So these tools and this workflow, I want to start off by emphasizing that these are all optional. Staff can adopt this optional workflow to streamline the withdrawal process. So you can alert staff of items that fall outside, select weeding criteria, and or you can just require an additional review before items are withdrawn and deleted. So while these tools and the entire workflow can be done by one individual with the right permissions, we think it's more commonly used in a collaborative setting. So Rachel and I are leading this webinar together to represent the tech services side and the selector side of collection management. So we will kind of be uh, switching off here, sharing our screens and demoing our own portions. And this webinar is being recorded. Both the recording and the slides will be shared with anyone who registered, and it will also be posted in this week's CCS News. So here's what the webinar is going to cover. We are going to start with reviewing some characteristics of the weeding workflow. So we're going to give a high-level overview of the workflow. We'll review permissions and give a couple workflow examples. Then we're going to look at each tool or component of the workflow. So Rachel will start by giving an overview of what the weeding template is capable of and show you how to, create one. I'll demo how to create and add records to a weeding record set and then submit the record set for approval. And then Rachel's going to round it out by demoing the actual approval process. So there we go. We're going to dive in, starting with just a few things to note about the Leap weeding workflow. So as I mentioned from the start, the Leap weeding workflow uses a set of tools to aid with weeding. So these tools are all new as of our most recent Polaris upgrade last month, and they include weeding templates, weeding record sets, and a new utility tool called the Leap Approval Dashboard. Now, if you have used templates and record sets before, there's going to be some familiarity with these tools, but the weeding versions do have unique characteristics, and that's why we're going to do a deep dive into them today. Like all other features in Polaris, the creation, access, and use of these tools is managed through permissions. So in a few slides, we'll talk about what groups have access to which tools. So again, libraries can make use of the full range of functionality in this workflow to add more control over what is weeded. So, for example, you may opt to use this workflow when training new selection staff. Or you may just want to use this workflow to streamline those item record bulk updates. So these tools can help you streamline changing that circ status to withdrawn and deleting those item records. And the final thing to note here is that these new tools are only available in Leap. So they were not added to the staff client. So again, starting off with giving that high-level overview of the workflow before we start talking about and demoing those individual tools. So I want to show you that process kind of broken down by tool. The whole workflow starts with the weeding template. So the weeding template lays the foundation of what is to be weeded. A weeding template defines the criteria of what you're weeding using item record fields. And as Rachel will show you, some criteria will exclude items from being weeded, or it may just alert staff by flagging items. And this is all based on how the template is set up. One other thing you can set in the weeding template is automatically updating items to withdrawn status when they're added to the set, and or automatically deleting item records at approval, which cuts out the need to do a separate item bulk update. So that's the first step. Once those templates are set up, staff can begin creating weeding record sets and then add items to be weeded to the set. So again, the weeding template dictates the rules of the weeding record set. Now, just like any other item record set, staff can add items individually by scanning them in one by one, or they can upload items in bulk to the set using an Excel file, like a web report or a downloaded Simply report. And as you're entering items, the set will either reject any item records that don't meet the weeding template criteria. So if my weeding template says the item has to have a material type of DVD and I scan in a Blu-ray, it will reject that Blu-ray item. It won't add it to the record set. The item won't be eligible for weeding, right? So it's going to reject items that don't match your weeding template criteria. The record set may also flag other types of items based on those template settings, right? So it may accept those items into the record set, but just throw up an alert. After the weeding record set is built, it's then submitted for approval. So once submitted, the record set will appear in a new Leap utility called the Approval Dashboard. And here, designated staff can approve or decline the weeding record set. So if approved, it will apply those record options as defined by the template. So if you set the template up to auto-delete item records once approved, all item records in that set will be marked for deletion as soon as you hit the approve button. And then if rejected, those items will not be weeded. So again, we're going to do a deep dive into each tool in this webinar. But before that, I just want to briefly mention permissions, right? So who can do what with these tools? So staff in the item editing or the cataloging one permission groups can create, modify, and delete weeding templates. Staff with general permissions can create, modify, and submit a weeding record set. And then again, staff in the item editing or cataloging one permission group can approve or decline a weeding record set. So if you're testing this workflow out and you have, if you're in the public services item editing or the cataloging one permission groups, you can test this entire workflow by yourself. If you just have general permissions, you will need to call on a colleague with the appropriate permissions to test the entire process. And then I want to give you another perspective of the workflow. So here is kind of like the steps in chronological order. So first, staff create the weeding template. Then they create the weeding record set. You'll add item records to the record set. When ready, you'll submit the record set for approval, and then the record set is either approved for weeding or declined. So I do want to frame this within a couple workflow examples. So here's the first one. Let's say in this first one, the library is training a new selector, and they're using the full range of weeding workflow functionality. So here, the Youth Services Manager or a Tech Services Staff Manager create the weeding template for picture books. So this template criteria says only items assigned to the youth fiction collection with a stat code of picture book can be added to the weeding record set. It will reject all other types of items. The new picture book selector creates a weeding record set using the picture book weeding template. So again, items outside of that template criteria are automatically rejected from the set. So the selector in training can't add an item from outside of their collection or stat code. When ready, that selector will submit the record set for approval. Finally, tech services staff use the approval dashboard to check for weeding record sets, and they see this picture book record set. So they review and approve the picture book record set for weeding. Item records are automatically set to the circulation status of withdrawn, and they're automatically marked for deletion based on those weeding template settings. So that's one example of a workflow. This one takes advantage of all components of that weeding template and the record set. The second workflow example I want to present is if a library just wants to take advantage of the circ status and deletion options in the template, right? So maybe you don't care about any of that item criteria. All you want to do is get those items withdrawn and deleted. So in this workflow, tech services staff will create a general weeding template that automatically sets items to the circ status of withdrawn when they're added to the set. And again, no other criteria is used with this template. So all selectors at your library will use this general weeding template when creating their weeding record sets. When the selectors identify items to weed, they will add the item records to the set. The item record automatically flips to withdrawn circ status based on those template settings. Then, when the selector is ready to delete the items in their set, they submit the record set for approval. Tech services staff use the approval dashboard to approve that submitted record set. At approval, the item records then are marked for deletion based on the weeding template setting. So again, this workflow example, it's not focused on any kind of item criteria for weeding. It's just taking advantage of those workflow record update options to streamline the record changes. So now we're going to dig into each of those individual components. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so Rachel can begin sharing hers.
All right, so I know Mieko covered this, but I'm just going to briefly review the capabilities of the weeding template. There are many different settings controlled by the weeding template. It controls how the weeding workflow is handled when it's linked to their weeding record set. The settings include the ability to define the criteria that Leap uses to verify items that you add to a weeding record set. It can affect the record set in two ways. It will reject some items from the record set entirely and display a toast, like if it is for the wrong branch. However, there are other settings that will allow the item in the record set, but will alert you to the potential that you may not want it with a toast and exclamation mark. This can happen if it is the last copy or if it does not fit within the date range that you specified for withdrawing. You can still decide to weed these items if you'd like. There are also settings for streamlining the process of withdrawing and deleting records, as Mieko explained, as well as a setting for a discard amount. The discard amount is visible in the approval dashboard. So I'm going to review each of these settings in the weeding template before I demonstrate how to create one. So this is the Details tab that you can see in the image. You can see that the drop-down menu labeled Mark Items Withdrawn is open. You have the option of choosing Never, Immediately, or At Approval. If you send the weeding record set to someone else, like a technical services staff to withdraw, this will be very useful for you. You don't have to think of the approval process of being for someone that needs to have their weeding list approved. You can just normally use it to send the record set to the staff that withdraw and delete the items. If you choose immediately, it will withdraw all items in the record set when you press save. If you choose add approval, it will withdraw all items when the weeding record set is approved in the approval dashboard. You can also use the delete approved items checkbox to delete and withdraw the items at the same time in the approval process. So this streamlines the process by eliminating that extra step of having to bulk change the circulation status to withdrawn and then having to delete the items from the record set. You can also see that there's a checkbox for the setting to alert you for the last copy. That's very useful. You will see a toast and an exclamation mark by the item in the record set when you use this setting. Below the checkboxes is a button for adding criteria. You can add more than one criteria at a time to your template. For example, if you want to use the template for multiple material types, you could create a separate criteria for each one in the same template. This decreases the number of templates that you need. However, if your library has multiple branches, you do need a separate weeding template for each branch. This screen appears when you press that Add Criteria button. It's the weeding criteria work form. In the inclusion criteria section, you can see that there's a power search statement. You can create this statement using the Find tool filter. So I'll demonstrate that in a minute when I create the weeding template. When this criteria is used, it will not allow any records in the record set that do not meet this criteria. You will see a toast alerting you at the top of the screen, but the record will not be added to the record set. The item filters section is for the age of the record or the circulation statistics. The age field is linked to the creation date in the record and not the first available date. However, these should not be too much older than the first available date. There's one more setting that you can use. It's on a discard amount tab. You can choose to use the amount in the item record, set a default price or none. Using the item record price is recommended. If you do try to use the template to set up a default discard amount per item, it requires the use of a language field in the item record. And since this hasn't been added to the bulk change capabilities yet, none of the libraries use it, so it's not the best option for the weeding template. One moment while I switch to the browser. All right, so now I'm going to demonstrate how to create the weeding template. So from the landing page, you would open the new drop-down menu, hover over templates, and you'll see weeding appear, and then you can click on weeding. There's actually a bug that may cause an error message at this time to appear. If you see it, all you need to do is to press cancel and try again. It should work the second time. If you have any problems with this, please do let us know by contacting the help desk. So this is the new weeding template work form that opened. I'm going to type in a name and select the owner. I'm going to use Algonquin for the example today. And in the Mark Items Withdrawn drop-down menu, I'm going to select Add Approval so that the items are marked as withdrawn when it's approved in the dashboard. I'm also going to use the Alert for Last Copy and Delete Approved Items settings. This will delete the items at the same time as they're approved. And you have to press Save before you can add criteria. Oh, an error message appeared. My 1 second. There we go. Just needed to change the name of the template. And now I'm going to add the criteria. This is a new weeding criteria work form because you can have more than one weeding criteria in your template. You do have to type in a name. To add the power search statement, I'm going to create it in the Find tool. So I'm going to press Find at the top of the screen. And since this is for item records, you will choose item record in the database drop-down menu. And then click on this funnel symbol. This is a search filter icon. So I'm going to build this by adding filter. So I'm going to press Add Condition. And this example today will just use the item material type of DVD. So I'll select material type and then scroll down to DVD. And I'll just select DVD. To access that power search statement, click on the symbol that looks like an eye for the preview of the query. And then you can highlight it and copy it. So now I'm going to close the Find tool by pressing Cancel and paste it into this inclusion criteria text box. You also can press this test criteria button to make sure it is valid. And in this item filters section, we have the option of using the age of the record as well as circulation statistics. So for this example, I'm just going to use older than 3 years. And then press Save. Now I can close this criteria and return to the template. The next thing I'm going to do is navigate to the Discard Amount tab and select the item record price as the source and save it again. All right. Does anyone have any questions about the weeding template before we move on? Feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself. Bridget asks, do we need to include a discard amount? You do not need to include it. If you do not want to see it, you can press none. When I demonstrate the approval dashboard, you will be able to see where you can access that discard amount, and you can save it for your records if you'd like. Are there any other questions? All right, Mieko, it's your turn now.
Okay, so I am going to take over here from the weeding record set side of things. So once that weeding template is set up, staff will use it to create a weeding record set. Before I jump into the demo, I just want to start out with just a quick overview of how you will use the weeding record set. So again, you can add items to be weeded individually or in bulk using a file. I will show both during my demo, and we also have instructions for both on our website. And as Rachel mentioned, the record set is going to reject item records that fall outside of that weeding template inclusion criteria. So in the example template, that is where Rachel added the statement about the material type being DVD. Or it is also going to reject items assigned to a different branch. So please keep in mind that at this time, you cannot have mixed branch sets. So you can't have a set that has both like Winnetka items and Northfield items in it. So you will need to use a separate record set for each branch. Based on your weeding template settings, the record set will accept, but will flag item records that are uh, the last available copy, because that's what Rachel flagged in the template. Or if the item falls outside of that additional item filters, which in our example template is at item age or the creation date. And then again, when you're ready, you'll submit the record set for approval. So at this time, I realized I shared my screen wrong. So I'm gonna have to stop sharing just for a second and switch over my sharing to Leap. Great. Okay. So let's say you're a selector and you are ready to do some weeding. Your tech services set up those weeding templates. So you are ready to go with the reading record set. When I am creating a new weeding record set, I will do so by opening the new menu and then selecting record set. This is going to look really familiar at this point. If you've ever created an item, a bib, or a patron record set, the first thing it has you do is select what record type you are creating. This time you will see that there is a new option here for weeding. So this is the option you will select when doing that weeding record set. And then it prompts you to select which weeding template you are using. So it's only going to show you the weeding templates assigned to your login branch. Right now, I am logged in as Algonquin, so I only see those weeding templates owned by Algonquin. So the one Rachel just created was ALK Test DVD4. That is the one I am going to select today, and then I will click OK. And it will create this skeleton record set for me. So to start, I'm just going to give it a name real quick. I'll say, hey, my initials, Weeding DVDs 2024. Optionally, you can add a note to your record set, but that is not required to save the set. And then for those who work with record sets, like bib record sets or patron record sets, you'll know that you can choose the owner of a record set, right? You can set it as a personal one, set the owner as your username, or you can set it to a branch or a library level. With weeding record sets, the owner is predetermined based on your login branch. So the owner is always going to be set to whatever branch you log in. Again, I'm logged in as Algonquin, so the owner is automatically set to Algonquin main. As you're building the set, because this may be a multiple day, a multiple week thing, if you ever forget what template you're using, you can always see it referenced here. And then if you need to check the criteria, you can use the find tool to search for and pull up that template and check the criteria. So I'm going to click save just so I make sure I retain my weeding record set. Now it's time to add the records that I want to weed. For the sake of time and because this is a demo, I'm going to add most of the records in bulk to start with, and then I will add some individual records. So again, we have instructions. We have step-by-step instructions on our website for how to add items in bulk. Oh, I love this question from Kim because it's going to set up some demo later. How do you determine what the flag warning is for? How do you know which is for criteria and which is for the last copy? There is going to be a helpful pop-up. So I will show you what the last copy pop-up looks like and what one of those item filter pop-ups look like. So let's add some records from a file in bulk. I am going to open this lower actions menu and select the option to add from file. And then it's going to prompt you to select the file from your computer. So if you have a web report or if you've built a simpler report and downloaded it, you can, as long as that report has the item barcode, you can then upload those records in bulk. So let me start by selecting the file. With my screen sharing, you may not be able to see my desktop on here. I'm going to select that file. And then while this is loading, one tip I want to give anyone who is using this with a Simply report, just a heads up, after you like download that Simply report initially, you may have to go in and save as to this Excel format in order to be able to upload it. So once you've identified the file, it's just going to ask you which column in your file has the item barcode. So you can expand and select the correct column. And then again, there is the option for an error report. So if there are any item barcodes that cannot be added to the record set, it will list those barcodes out. And let me finish up by saying add from file. Depending on how big the file is, and if you are in training like I am, that it tends to be a little bit slower, or if you're in production, this may take a few minutes faster, a few minutes slower. So what we're seeing here, since we're uploading in bulk, we're getting a set of alerts to start. So these are all items that have been added to our record set. There is a flag on them. So I see a handful of items here that are the last copy for the system. One thing you'll notice with these pop-ups is that they don't fade away like those usual alerts do. Some people may love that, some people may hate that. What's nice is it does give you the opportunity if you need to like copy paste the barcode anywhere, so you want to come back to it. You'll see they're still in the record set and they are flagged. I am going to just X out of these all. There we go. So anything in here, anything added to the record set is going to be just listed in these rows. There is this little exclamation point column in between the checkbox and the item title, and that is your flag alert. So anything without flag in this box means the item meets all of our weeding template criteria. Anything, let me scroll down till I get some flag items here. There we go. Anything with this little red exclamation point is a flagged item. All of our alerts said this was the last available copy in the system, so that is what this flag indicates for these particular titles. So next thing I want to do, I've got some sample barcodes here. I want to show you what those rejection messages look like and what some of those alert messages look like. So I'm going to start with some rejection message examples. So this first item, I'm going to scan it individually. It's going to be rejected from the weeding record set because it falls outside of that record criteria. In our weeding template, the record criteria was that the item had to be a DVD. I believe this item is a Blu-ray. So this is what happens if I try to add something outside of the criteria to the record set. I get the red, they call these toasts, the red toast, and it will explicitly tell me that the item is outside the defined exclusion criteria. Kate asked, does this refer to the last copy in CCS? I believe it is system-wide. The next thing I want to show you, so in addition to being rejected for the item criteria, items can also be rejected if they fall outside of other characteristics. So we've already mentioned that if an item is assigned to a different branch, it cannot be added to the record set. So here I have an item that belongs to Algonquin's branch. And if I try adding it, it will tell me the item is rejected because it is assigned to a different organization, not eligible for weeding by my location. Some additional characteristics that will prompt an item to be rejected is if the item is an interlibrary loan item, if the item is an e-content record, or if the item has an ineligible circulation status. And those are going to be anything where the item is still tied to a patron record. So if the item is checked out, if it's currently ready for pickup for someone, or if it's in transit for someone, the item is ineligible to be weeded. Um, Eligible circ statuses, aside from available, include statuses like missing, um, repair, damaged, display. Um, this information is all written out on the Reading Record Set how-to page. We will show a link to that at the end of the session. So those are some rejections. And then real quick, I want to show those alert messages. So the alert messages are, again, when the items are able to be added to the record set, but they just want to flag it and alert you for some reason. So this first one here, so this first one is an item that falls outside of those additional item filters. So in the case of our example template, it was the item had to be 3 years or older. This item was not. It was still added to our record set, and as you saw, it just flagged saying it did not falls outside of those filter criteria. And then I know you've already seen this, but I am going to show you again. This is just the alert for that last copy. So you will see the message, last available copy for the system. I'm going to save my record set again here. Are there, I think I'm going to pause just in case there are some questions. The date range is looking at the first available date in the item record. Actually, it is looking at the item record creation date. That is a good question. So the final step on the selector side, once you've added those records to your set and you're ready to send it on for those records to be deleted, you will submit the record set for approval. You'll find this option under the top actions menu. I'm going to expand. And then there's the selection for submit for approval. So right now, Rachel and I are demoing as if this is like a two-step process. You build the record set and then someone approves it. If you are a library that has like a three-step process, so maybe you have someone build the record set, maybe your department manager reviews the records in the set, and then you want tech services to approve that record set, you do have the option to submit for review first, and then whoever is reviewing the record set can then submit for approval once they've looked at the titles. But today we are just demoing for approval. So I'm going to click submit for approval. Ooh, before I do that, I'm just going to draw your attention real quick to this status. So right now the status of my record set is pending. That indicates that like this record set is still being built. I'm going to click submit for approval. If there are items that have that flag in your record set, it will always pause and ask if you are sure. So you get one other opportunity to review things. I'm going to say continue. So at this time, my record set has been pushed out to that approval dashboard, and the record set status has been updated to approval requested. Okay, I'm going to close out of my record set, stop sharing my screen, and then Rachel is going to kind of round out that deep dive with the approval process. Rachel, you are there.
There we go. So I just wanted to briefly review the permissions again for the approval dashboard. To have permission to approve or decline weeding record sets, staff need to be logged into the branch that the weeding record set was created for. So if you have logged in already as one branch, you need to log back out and log in as a different branch to see those record sets that need to be approved. Staff also need to be in either the Public Services Item Editing Permission Group or the Cataloging One Permission Group in order to approve a record set. So one moment while I switch back to the browser. All right. So now I'm going to demonstrate how to use that approval dashboard. There are actually two options for approving or declining the weeding record set. You can do so from the approval dashboard or within a record set. So first I'm going to demonstrate how to use the approval dashboard. I'm going to click on Utilities, and then under Print Notices, you can see Approval Dashboard. So in this dashboard, you can see we've got two buttons, one for approve and decline, and then there's a table that shows the record set ID number, the name of the record set, the status, the request date, number of items, and here's where you'll see that discard amount. So if you're using a weeding template that does not have the discard amount setting enabled, you will not see that discard amount here, like this middle option. In order to approve or decline the record set, you need to click on it. If you do want to review it, you can open it by just clicking on the name of the record set to review it, and then close it again to go back to the dashboard. So I'm going to approve this by clicking on the checkbox. You can select them all by clicking on this checkbox in the top row, and then press approve to approve the record set. You will see alerts asking you to confirm that you want to weed items that have alerts, and then another one asking you to approve the reading request, and then I'm going to press continue. It may take some time to process the weeding record set because it has to withdraw everything and then mark it for deletion. So this particular record set has 216 items in it, so it's taking some time. While it's doing that, I'm going to take a look at the chat and see what questions we have. Oh, let me go answer them. So we got one from Kim Nevins. If a record set still has a status of pending, can other staff still be able to review, or does the record set need to be submitted for review? And Mieko said yes, other staff will be able to view the record set while it's in pending status. The review status is just for a more formal way of getting eyes on it. Nora asked, what happens to the record set if it is declined? If it's declined, you will see that the record set will still be in the approval dashboard, and it will have a status of pending again. The person who created the record set will not be notified automatically. So if you do want to decline a record set, you do need to contact that individual to let them know so that they know to take a look at that record set. When you are done approving your record sets, you can delete the record set. We don't need to keep them in the database. You can find these by switching the view from active requests to recently processed. And then you will find a list of all of your recently processed requests. It does say that the status has been approved already. So you can open this up and then open the Actions drop-down menu and press Delete to delete the record set. All right, so I'm going to switch my view back to active requests. Nora has another question. She says, if someone makes changes to a record set after it is on the approval dashboard, does it need to be resubmitted? No, I don't think so. I think it should be fine the way it is. So there is one more way that you can approve or decline a record set that is from within the record set. So I've opened up a record set that was in the approval dashboard. So this is a good way to streamline the process for those who have both the permission to create the reading record set and approve and decline it. So after you have created your record set, if you're ready to approve it yourself, you can simply open the Actions drop-down menu and press Approve or Decline. The only downside to doing this from within the record set is that you can't see that discard value in the approval dashboard. That's the only place where you can see it. But if you don't care about recording that for your records, then that's fine to just approve it from within the record set. So I'm going to decline this one so you can see what happens. So the status changed back to pending. I'm going to close this and I'm back on the dashboard. So you can see here in the approval dashboard that the status has changed to pending. And then I would contact Mieko and tell her she needs to look at it again to make some changes because I don't want to read the ones that have alerts on them. And then she would have to look at it, update it, and then send it back by pressing submit for approval all over again. And again, after you have submitted something for approval within your own reading record set, you're welcome to delete it since we don't need to keep all of these extra record sets. We have some more questions in the chat. Kate says this might seem like a basic question, but is the idea that all of this would be done before we actually pull the books from the shelf? No, you don't have to do that. If you are creating a shelf list or pick list from Simply Reports, at that time that you're creating your list from Simply Reports, you can print it out and send that to the staff that will pull the books, or you can send them the record set if they're going to just use the tablet. They can access the record set from the tablet. And if they have access to that record set, they can pull the books and then let you know that they've pulled them when they're done. Then after that, you would be able to send your record set for approval to the dashboard and approve the reading record set. It's a great question. Bridget asks, will the pop-up warnings appear each time the record set is open? No, they don't. They only appear at the time when the title is added to the record set. Okay, are there any other questions?
So as people are thinking about questions, I just want to go back to Nora's questions about making changes to the record set. As you were demoing, I did test this, and if a record set has been submitted for approval, it will not allow staff to
Okay.
save changes to it. So staff are not able to add new items to the record set once it's been submitted.
Thanks for testing that. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I hadn't tested it either. It's a good question. I'm going to share my screen again. Um, just giving everyone another second here to think about some questions. Rachel and I are happy to stay on if other questions do come up past the end of the webinar. But just kind of wrapping things up here. So over the course of this webinar, we're hoping that you kind of have a general sense of what the LEAP weeding workflow is now, and basic understanding of how to use the three related tools, or at least feel comfortable enough to jump in and try them out. So we have how-to pages on our website where you'll find all of the information we covered today. So we have an overview page, and then pages with step-by-step instructions on how to create and use weeding templates, use those weeding record sets, and the approval dashboard. If you are browsing all the how-tos on our website, you'll see a dedicated topic subsection for weeding workflow under both the cataloging and the public services department sections. So I'm also including the link to Training Leap if you wanted to log in there and test things out. You will also find the link to Training Leap on the Member Tools A to Z page on our website. So we are working on some more content. We're making videos that correspond to each how-to page. We're also creating a short online course dedicated to the weeding workflow. So more to come there. And then, of course, we will send out the recording link and the slides directly to everyone who registered for this webinar. And we will also post the recording link in this week's CCS news. Also, as part of the email with the recording link and slides, there will also be a link to a session evaluation form. So if you have a moment and can fill it out, we'd really appreciate it. So like I said, Rachel and I are going to stick around in case there were any other questions that pop up on the weeding workflow. But, I hope you at least feel interested in trying it out in Training Leap. So at this time, I am going to stop the recording